Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank PEREIRA, on Rajya Sabha television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. United Arab Emirates set to open more consular offices in India. UAE's ambassador also reaffirms his government's intention to revitalize India's infrastructure with $75 billion investment from its sovereign wealth fund. Britain and the European Union reach historic deal in the terms of the Brexit divorce agreement paves the way for the second phase of negotiations covering trade talks and a transition period. US President Donald Trump recognizes Jerusalem as capital of Israel, directs beginning process of constructing US embassy there. Palestinian president calls it deplorable. World leaders raise reservations. And Russia banned from the 2018 Winter Olympics over systematic doping. IOC also hands lifetime ban to country's Deputy Prime Minister Vitaly Mutko, preventing him from having any involvement in the Games. UAE's ambassador to India, Ahmed Albanna, on Tuesday said that his country has committed $75 billion to India's National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, and of this, $1 billion was transferred 2 months ago. He also said the UAE denounces terrorism and regularly shares information with India in the fight against this global problem. The UAE's move indicates its willingness to engage with India to increase cooperation in all possible areas of development and investment.
The United Arab Emirates ambassador to India, Ahmed Albanna, announced opening of 3 new consular offices in India in an effort to reach out and make visa application for Indians easy. The ambassador also said his country denounces terrorism and regularly shares information with India in the fight against this global problem. The cooperation includes sharing of information and intelligence.
Extremism, and we work very closely with India, with many different countries in the world to counter-attack all those organizations that have been listed either by the UN or by some other countries or by our own countries as terrorist organization and extremist organization, and we work together to fight those organizations.
When Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the UAE in August 2015, both countries had signed 17 strategic agreements in the areas of trade, defense and combating terror. UAE is keen to invest in various sectors, including infrastructure, but it wants issues like big investment hurdles to be removed.
We don't expect for India to expect from us only to come and invest here, and it has to be a two-way affair. It has to be, we look at where are the strength of India in certain ways. So therefore, we're looking to attract that into the UAE. And we look at what are the strengths of UAE, and we're looking to export that into India.
In order to assist Indians visiting the UAE, its embassy in Delhi has also started a mobile app. Available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, it services all needs from applying and tracking the status of passports to visas and also submitting attested documents. Developed on the lines of the Digital India initiative, the UAE ambassador said the app will be of help to both Indians and UAE nationals. It's the first such app developed by the UAE. Akhilesh Suman's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And joining me for a chat this week, I have a very special guest with me, His Excellency Ahmed Albanna, Ambassador of the UAE to India. Welcome and thank you for joining me on Rajya Sabha TV. As far as the ties between India and the UAE are concerned, where do you think they stand? How good are our ties?
Well, if we look at the relationship between United Arab Emirates and India, it's been historical, goes over many hundreds and hundreds of years. If we look at our bilateral trade and the growth of the bilateral trade, in the early 70s, our bilateral trade, UAE-India, was somewhere around $182 million. But if we look at the bilateral trade today, or the figures of 2016, 2017, it has reached about $53 billion. So that the figure by itself, talks about itself. We have reached with India to sign a strategic dialogue agreement. The strategic agreement was signed during the visit of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Deputy Chief Commander of the Armed Forces, during India's Republic Day in January 2017. There are more than 34 agreements have been signed. The main pillar of the agreements are the protection of investment, the double taxation, the air service agreement, the strategic agreement, and many, many other agreements that has been signed either during the last visit that I mentioned or during the first visit of His Highness, which was in February 2016.
Yes.
The visit, or the historic visit, after 34 years of the Honorable Prime Minister Modi in August 2015, put the whole relationship on a different track, a very strategic track.
Sure.
And the relationship, I would call it now, it is a vision-to-vision relationship.
Okay, a vision-to-vision relationship is what you're calling it.
Yes.
How do we take it to the next level?
Well, we've already taken it to the next level, and I'm sure we're not going to stop. There are many fields of cooperation, and as you heard, about 2 months ago, we announced that both India and UAE announced that India will be the host country and country of honor in the World Government Summit, the 6th World Government Summit that organized by the United Arab Emirates in the city of Dubai. As you know, last week, India was a guest of honor and a partner country in Abu Dhabi Cultural Festival. And we are working, in your report, you have mentioned the $75 billion fund that has been created.
Are there any stipulations for that fund? Are there any commitments that we need to keep?
Well, for sure. I think the fund was announced in August 2015, and then again it was followed up and all that by the first visit of His Highness and the second visit. But about 6 months ago, more than 6 months ago, the structure of the fund was finalized and formulated by the concerned ministries here, Ministry of Finance, the NIIF, and the fund about a month ago or 2 months ago, $1 billion was already dedicated to that fund. I think the relationship has become a strategic relation, has become, as I mentioned, vision to vision, and the thanks goes to our leadership, the long vision and the long sight of our leadership, both in the United Arab Emirates and in India, we have reached to that level.
Are there any stumbling blocks between the two countries? Maybe some fine-tuning that is required somewhere?
Well, there is always, when things happen and when things are practiced, there are always things, but no. There are no stumbles at all. There are no any sort of, let's say, trouble or any sort of problems that may sort of shake this path or this track or this relationship. But always There are means and ways of improving. You know, when you are what they call it on the job, and when you are doing things, sometimes you find and you fine-tune things. So it's just a matter of fine-tuning things, but things are rolling on the right track.
So what you're suggesting is the relationship between the two countries is stellar at the moment, and you don't foresee any stumbling blocks. Even if something does come up, the relationship is so strong that it can be dealt with.
For sure. Definitely.
Okay, that's great. That's fantastic to hear then. You know, let's talk about some sectors probably we need to concentrate on going forward. What do you think our focus for both the countries needs to be going forward?
Right. Well, traditionally, as you know, the foreign trade was an important element in the bilateral trade between India and UAE. India is trading partner #1 for the United Arab Emirates. And we are trading partner #3 for India after United States of America and China. Now, you know, that again, by itself, it shows that the UAE is #3 after USA and after China. It means a lot. Now, having said that, the traditional foreign trade, oil and gas, was always there. But then there are other new sectors that we are looking at with India, sectors such as IT, digital India and digital world and digital UAE, whatever you call it, space, defense, the industrial sector. The industrial sector, those sectors or those segments that India is strong in, for example, in the IT, the blue chip industry,
yes,
and so on and so on. So therefore, yes, there are many sectors that we can look at and we can expand and we can work together and we can work in partnership, UAE, India, and also we could work in partnership trilateral, UAE, India, and XYZ country.
And which country would you suggest
well,
that could be?
There are many countries where we are exploring now, and we are looking into collaboration, UAE, India mainly, for sure. But then we are exploring those countries where India would like to, and we also have interest in order to do what we call multilateral or trilateral.
Okay, great to know that the options are on the table and the options are always open. As carrying the relationship forward is concerned. There are several thousand or millions of Indians in the UAE as well, all of them working hard. They're contributing to the UAE's economy. Is there a message that you want to send out to them?
Well, there is about 2.8 million Indians live in the United Arab Emirates. The remittances of the Indians living in the United Arab Emirates reached last year to around $13.6 billion. I will mention, or I will quote His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, saying that we respect all Indians who live in our country. We actually thank them because they were part of the growth of the United Arab Emirates in many different levels, in many different sectors, and so on. So, if we look at the culture, and if we look at the Indian culture and our culture, it is so close. And it is so also, we know Indian culture, and the Indians know our culture. So the closeness, the understanding, the different concepts in terms of respect, in terms of creating the right environment for them to live in the UAE in accordance to the applicable international laws and rules and regulation. I chapeau, let me put it this way, the Indian community of many different levels and sectors, from the traders to the professionals, to the doctors, to the lawyers, to the auditors, to many different levels who live in the UAE and are part of the growth of the United Arab Emirates.
All right, Ambassador, we'll have to leave it at that. It was a pleasure having you here in our studio. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Well, on that note now, it's time for a short break. Still to come, Britain and the European Commission clinch deal to move Brexit talks forward. British Prime Minister Theresa May says she expects a formal agreement to be approved at a European Union summit of leaders next week. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome. I'm Amritan Shirai and you're watching Law of the Land on Raj Sabha TV.
Privacy has to be reasonably explained. On the basis of that constitution, you may have to amend.
The death penalty is sustained on the basis of the concept regarding life given in ADM Jabalpur only.
The impact of the judgment will be huge.
There is a specific right in the Constitution against self-incrimination.
See, under the Constitution, no right is absolute.
Watch Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha Television.
Welcome back. You're watching World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira. After several rounds of negotiations, Britain and the EU reached a historic deal on Friday on terms of the Brexit divorce. The agreement now paves the way for EU leaders to open the second phase of Brexit negotiations, covering trade talks and a transition period. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker said it was a breakthrough, expressing confidence that the EU leaders will approve it.
To move Brexit talks on to the next phase, British Prime Minister Theresa May struck a last-minute deal with the European Union on Friday. This after the European Commission gave its verdict, saying enough progress had been made to end an impasse over issues like the Irish border, the divorce bill and the citizens' rights. After intense talks through the night, the Commission agreed to allow a second phase of talks on future relations to begin, prompting the British Prime Minister to rush to Brussels.
On the basis of the mandate which was given to me by the European Council, the Commission has just formally decided to recommend to the European Council that sufficient progress has now been made on the strict terms of the divorce.
The British Prime Minister said she expected a formal agreement to be approved at the European Council summit, which begins on the 14th of December.
Getting to this point has required give and take on both sides. And I believe that the joint report being published is in the best interests of the whole of the UK. I very much welcome the prospect of moving ahead to the next phase, to talk about trade and security, and to discuss the positive and ambitious future relationship that is in all of our interests.
As per the there will be no hard border with Ireland. Also, the European Union citizens in the UK and the UK citizens in the European Union will see their rights protected.
It's been finding the way through that enables us to deliver for citizens, to deliver on the financial settlement, and also, crucially, to deliver in relation to Northern Ireland that agreement on no hard border, but also respecting the constitutional and economic integrity of the United Kingdom. That's what we've been working to. That's what I believe this joint report sets out.
Has made significant commitments on the avoidance of a hard border after its withdrawal from the European Union. All of the EU27 stand firmly behind Ireland and behind the peace process.
European leaders hailed the deal reached between Britain and the EU. The breakthrough also pushed sterling to a 6-month high against the euro, adding momentum to an upswing in world stocks. Even Britain's FTSE 100 index, which normally falls when sterling rises because of high number of dollar earners on the list, edged higher. The divorce bill will amount to between 35 to 40 billion pounds. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, US President Donald Trump on Wednesday overturned decades of official US policy by recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Trump described the move as long overdue to advance the Middle East peace process. While Israel called the move historic, there has been sharp international criticism. Here's more.
Defying overwhelming global opposition and warnings, US President Donald Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital on Wednesday and announced plans to relocate the US embassy there from Tel Aviv. However, he said he still supported a two-state solution to the conflict if approved by both sides, which would essentially see the creation of an independent Palestinian state living alongside Israel.
But today we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do.
Trump argued that delaying recognition and the embassy move had not brought peace any closer. Trump stressed that he was not stipulating how much of Jerusalem should be considered Israel's capital, nor ruling out a future division of the city. Palestinians see East Jerusalem as a capital of their own future state.
We are not taking a position of any final status issues, including the specific boundaries of the Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem or the resolution of contested borders. Those questions are up to the parties involved.
While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described the announcement as an important step towards peace, seizing on the opportunity to call on other countries to join the US in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas called the decision deplorable, adding it will aid extremist organizations to wage wars.
We're profoundly grateful for the President for his courageous and just decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and to prepare for the opening of the U.S. Embassy here. This decision reflects the President's commitment to an ancient but enduring truth, to fulfilling his promises, and to advancing peace.
These measures create deliberate constraints to all the efforts towards realizing peace and reflect the US withdrawal from practicing its role as a peace mediator.
The announcement provoked condemnation from US allies and a furious reaction from the Muslim world. Turkey, Jordan, Egypt and Lebanon criticized it. Demonstrations were also seen outside US consulates in Ankara and Istanbul. British Prime Minister Theresa May said the decision was unhelpful for peace prospects. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Angela Merkel also condemned the move. China and Russia also expressed concern that the move could lead to escalation of tensions in the region.
Jerusalem is a final status issue that must be resolved through direct negotiations between the two parties on the basis of the relevant Security Council and General Assembly resolutions, taking into account the legitimate concerns of both the Palestinian and the Israeli sides.
Trump's decision upends 7 decades of US foreign policy that has resisted a recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital before the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is resolved. While Trump says the move was a fulfillment of another campaign promise, the decision could hinder the peace process and increase security risks in a region that is already on the edge. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, some sports-related news now. Russia has been banned from the 2018 Winter Olympic Games. The decision by the International Olympic Committee was taken over Russia's alleged state-orchestrated doping program. However, clean Russian athletes would be allowed to compete, but under the Olympic flag as neutrals.
The Executive Board of the International Olympic Committee resumed its two-day meeting in Lausanne on Wednesday, hours after banning Russia from the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Games. The Russian Olympic Committee has been banned from competing after it was found there was unprecedented systematic manipulation of the anti-doping system. However, in a bid to protect innocent athletes, Russians can compete as Olympic athletes of Russia as long as they can show they have a doping-free background.
We think that these clean Russian athletes can be more about building a bridge into the future of a cleaner sport than erecting a new wall between Russia and the Olympic movement.
The IOC has also decided to suspend Russian Olympic Committee President Alexander Zhukov as an IOC member, while Russian Deputy Prime Minister Vitaly Mutko, who was sports minister at the time of the Sochi Games, was also banned from any future participation at the Olympics.
The decision is controversial. Speaking about the positives, the IOC allowed all clean Russian athletes to compete in the Olympics. Secondly, this team will be called a team of Russian athletes.
While most countries have supported the action against systemic doping, they have also called for protection of the rights of individual athletes.
The Chinese government has always opposed doping, but we also believe that legal rights of all clean athletes must be protected and the fairness and purity of sports must be defended.
It's a very strong statement by the IOC, and it's an appropriate statement. I think what we saw in Sochi was clearly a disgrace, what happened there at those games by the host nation, and I'm delighted that the IOC has come out with such a strong response.
The ban has fueled speculation that Moscow could instruct its athletes to boycott the games altogether, thus rejecting the compromise solution. However, IOC President Bach said an Olympic boycott has never achieved anything, insisting that given the window left open for clean athletes to compete, a boycott was also unwarranted. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And finally, with the press of a button, Lord & Taylor helped turn New York's Fifth Avenue into a winter wonderland with its 2017 holiday windows. For more than 9 months, a team of about 75 different skilled craftsmen, painters, electricians, carpenters, video producers all worked to create a theme of the best and brightest of all. The flagship store's displays are built in a workshop in Queens and then restructured under the feet of unsuspecting passers-by. I'm going to leave you with these visuals from the Big Apple. Until next time, this is Frank PEREIRA signing off.